Welcome, friends, to the Someone Gets Me podcast. I am your host, Dianne A, and I am so delighted that you're here. This podcast was created because I believe there is a visionary leader inside each one of us who is waiting to be seen. In each episode of Someone Gets Me, you will hear useful tips from successful visionaries who will share their stories about how being seen has allowed them to take their vision out into the world with action. Are you gifted and don't know it? That's the question. I'm Dianne A, and I'm here to tell you that it matters, that you know you're gifted. Because gifted people have a different experience of the world. It's not an ego trip or something's better than or worse than. It's simply different. And unless we understand the differences in ourselves and in others, then as a world, as a community, as a family, as a person, things can get really goofy and go awry. I am a gifted person. I work with gifted people. Gifted people have a different experience of the world. Most of the people who work with me didn't know they were gifted when they first found me, but they knew they could relate to me. And when I would explain their different sense of humor or their layered questions as a gifted quality, they would look at me kind of curious, like they didn't really get it, till I started explaining. And with education, these amazing gifted people now can thrive. So this conversation about are you gifted and don't know it is designed to try to help you see that if you relate to some of the things I'm going to talk about, that you might have gifted qualities or might be gifted or might have an overexcitability. And that could explain a lot of the misunderstandings of your lifetime. It could explain a lot of the feelings of being inferior or not good enough or an imposter syndrome. Because for a gifted person, life is different. There is a brain development in a gifted person that is atypical. It's not the norm. So most of the time, the clients I work with and myself, I have a different experience of the world. I see things really acutely. I feel big emotions. Yeah. And it's not because I'm weird or something's wrong with me. When I was younger, I would have these experiences and I was told it was because I was different than everyone else. That got interpreted by my 5-year-old self like something was wrong with me. Nothing's wrong with me. I'm gifted. And once I understood it and could work with it, I can excel. Gifted people love to have a sense of perfectionism in their environment. But it's not that fear-based perfectionism of it has to be perfect in order to be good enough. It's the perfectionism that has to do with precision and beauty and harmony. It's an amazing thing. And so it's a different type of perfectionism though, right? So it's so important. Gifted people sometimes struggle with being vulnerable about what they're really thinking or feeling. Often because we've been made fun of or joked about or harmed because of it. And so when a gifted person finally chooses you to be vulnerable with, honor that, right? It's a big deal. Gifted people also have a lot of anxiety. Now, it's not anxiety that's mental illness necessarily. It's the fear that things won't go the way that they can see them to go. So if you're a visionary and you can see it a certain way and you aren't really sure it can happen that way because of you or others or the situation, whatever, then an anxiety evokes. It's not mental illness. It's part of being gifted and wanting to see things work in a certain way. So it's so important that we understand the differences and that we honor them in ourselves. The gifted journey is not easy at all. And a lot of people think, oh, well, you have smart kids, or you're a smart person, life is easier for you. No, it's not easier. No. Some things come easier, right? But not everything. And sometimes what doesn't come easy really causes trouble. or can. So if you're gifted and you don't know it, you could be walking around trying to put your beauty, your magnificence into a box that is not meant for you, and it will feel really squishy and really tight, and it won't work very well. So I want to talk about this because it's so important for people to understand that the struggle is real, and just because someone's smart doesn't make them better than or worse than, and it doesn't mean life is easier. I have a lot of intuition, and that's part of my giftedness, and I see and know things other people don't see or know right away. That sometimes causes trouble because for years when I was younger, I didn't even know that I was seeing things other people didn't see because I didn't know it was a gifted thing. I didn't even know it was a thing. And I got in trouble a lot. People made fun of me and those kinds of things. I got bullied for it. I was even stabbed when I was in junior high school, just walking down the hall. And the comment was that I was different. What did that mean? How did that get interpreted, right? Being gifted sometimes is not just about being better or weird, right? And the geeks, right? The geeky people, they're gifted. But so are the artists and the musicians and the athletes and the people that have passion. One thing cool about gifted people is it's really hard to bamboozle us with your logic because we can logic with you, right? But that's also how you know if somebody is using their giftedness maybe against something, when they're trying to flip logic in circles without being able to come down to the core. So there's so many ways to look at this. I had a client one time who I really, really adore, and his giftedness, it was in the medical field, and he was able to put together treatment for people that was very precise, and it was life-saving. And he was educated that way. He understood it. He could see things that most couldn't. So he was very revered. And then he started working in this one place where a lot of the employees didn't really like the fact that he wouldn't socialize with them in the break room or whatever and all of these things. And so one day he called me and he was very upset because he was getting reported for not being social. I said, well, what were you doing that's not social? He goes, well, I just can't talk about soap operas and I can't talk about the weather and things that I'm thinking of these important things on my break. And I said, do they understand that that's how you think? And of course they didn't. So I got involved and I helped out with educating the employer, which was a medical facility, educating the attorneys and the other people involved in all this because it became a big deal, to help the person see, the other people see, that just because somebody has a unique sense of understanding something doesn't mean they're being rude. And just because somebody doesn't understand it doesn't make it wrong. And that they hired him for this particular skill set that now they're trying to say is a problem. And so we found a way to work it out where they didn't want to have to make him talk about soap operas anymore, and that he was going to set better boundaries so they would understand why he didn't want to talk about soap operas, because he thought he couldn't understand it. So there was a disconnect in a couple different places. So gifted people need help with translation and bridges sometimes. And most of my clients, when they start working with me, they're visionaries and they're great and they're successful, but they don't really realize what gifted means. It means that we have a different nervous system in a lot of ways. Our vagus nerve, our brain, our neurology function sometimes in a more heightened way. So we have more things to think of and pay attention to. I do podcast interviews on this very Someone Gets Me podcast, and there are times when I will ask questions that are layered. To me, that's normal. I have to be careful that my interviewee is also on that same wavelength. And often I'll hear something like, well, that's a lot of questions in one, or that's got lots of layers. The answer is yes, it does, because that's how I think. So if I have to do things linear, one thing at a time without the layers, I can. It just takes more work. So gifted people will process differently and come up with things in a different, more creative, different way. It's not better or worse though. It's just different. Gifted people have high standards by nature. Sometimes standards that are so high that it backfires on them because they want it to be so perfect out of the gate that they don't even take the first action and they suffer tremendously. So sometimes the gifted people I work with have me kind of like working with them off stage. So when they're out there in the world on their life stage, they can function better and be happier and take action they need to take. Because sometimes that overthinking and those high standards create like a log jam in the brain, so to speak. So it's important. So if you're gifted and you don't know it and you're having struggles, then once you realize that it's part of the neurology, you can learn how to work with it. You can learn how to go, okay, that's that. Oh, that's my emotional overexcitability. Or, oh, I know I'm feeling an imposter syndrome, but because I'm feeling an imposter syndrome, I'm not an imposter. It's time for me to step into who I am. Oh, that's what it's like. And pretty soon we start making friends with all those parts of us that for our whole lifetime were either misunderstood, denied, misrepresented, or thought something was wrong. Same thing with anxiety. Most of my clients say, I have anxiety. Okay, well, there's a difference between a gifted person having anxiety because they can see a vision and they're not sure how it's going to come about, and you look around and there's not too many people who understand you, so how are you going to get it to happen? And anxiety that's a mental illness, or anxiety that has to do with something is wrong on a different level. They can get confused if somebody doesn't realize they're gifted and it's a different reality. Now, a gifted person can have both. That's where the art is, in helping each other out. Because perfectionism, from a sense of justice and a sense of precision and harmony, that is an intrinsic gifted state. Perfectionism, because of fear and it has to be perfect because I have to look good, that's externally motivated, could happen to a gifted person, but it's not the intrinsic one. So there's two different kinds. And this precision for justice and harmony and having things work is an asset. Most people hide it. And I want to invite you to bring that forward. Gifted people who don't know they're gifted can feel alone and isolated, siloing themselves or isolating themselves from others. Because when you keep trying to engage with somebody who doesn't understand you, sooner or later you quit trying to engage. Or you think you're an alien. You know, when I was in high school, I thought I was an alien. I mean, I remember thinking I was at a senior board event, and I was on the senior board of my senior class, and we just had a blast, and we were having fun on the outside. But I remember on the inside thinking, they don't even see the real me. I think I'm an alien. I don't relate to what any of these people are saying. And I really didn't relate. Part of it was because I was introverted and shy. Part of it, a bigger part of it, was because I was gifted, and things that were important to me were different than the things that were important to them. Now, most of those people, I still know them, and we've been friends throughout all these years, are also really smart and gifted. They had a different reality. And they might have had some of the same thoughts. I should maybe ask them now that I'm thinking about it. But the point is that we can feel alone and isolated and have this sense of loneliness that's chronic sometimes, because who is going to understand us? The more profound some of your gifts are, sometimes the more alone you can feel. And so when somebody goes, yeah, but you're really smart, or yeah, but your best is better than others, it doesn't help the loneliness until somebody says, I get it, I hear you. So gifted people need to come together with other gifted people. That's how come I have this Someone Gets Me community that goes with this podcast. That's why the Facebook group. So we can come together and be a united, safe group. Yeah, that's why. Because we learn things fast. One time is a habit. One time is a habit for most gifted people. So if you do one thing, if you do something and you got gifted people around you, they might say, you always have done that. But maybe it was only once or twice, because that's how the brain processes. Some gifted people aren't as verbal as others. Some are more verbal. Some people think in songs. There's so many variances. There's an intuitive and empathic quality too to a lot of us, where we know things or we feel things in a different way. Gifted people collect things, collect hobbies, lots of different hobbies. I quilt, I race boats, I love gardening, I take care of my dog, I love cooking. I could keep on going. Gifted people collect things too. They're collectors. When I was younger, I had a collection of thimbles. Why, I don't know. I had a collection of spoons. I had a collection of these really cool China dolls. I have a collection of sailing hats from different regattas, and collection of all kinds of other things. Oh, Swarovski crystals. I could go on. Gifted people collect things. We collect stuff. And it's not just stuff, it's things that have meaning. Like I have rocks from all these different places I've traveled. And they have meaning to me. All my gifted clients have things that have meaning to them that they collect. I do home visits sometimes. And in the homes, the gifted person who gets excited about their collections of their things will show you in the most beautiful, sentimental way. And so when someone says, throw away your collections, or you don't need all of that, they may not understand the neurology behind it or the meaning behind it. So if you're gifted and you don't know it, you could be cutting yourself down for some of the things that are uniquely beautiful and amazing about who you are as a person, as a being, as an amazing, amazing individual. So yes, you're probably intense and excitable. Yes. Intellectual intensity, emotional intensity, physical intensity, right? Or I have some friends who are chefs, and they have a taste sensitivity like no other. They can taste anything and tell you exactly what's in it, when I can tell you it's good. And I might be able to name some of the things. I have another person who can smell that way. Smell like a blend of essential oils and tell you what's in it and in what proportions. I can tell you kind of and what it is. And the reason why I share that is because all gifted people are not the same. And our giftedness shows up differently in different ways with different people. So it's fun when you think about it, because it's always an exploration of how am I going to let this part of me show up next. So this matters, and it matters deeply to me, and I'm sure it matters to you, because we need to understand that what we think is normal isn't normal for everyone else. We need to realize that our natural curiosity, that part of us that wants to dive deep into things, is required for the betterment of our world, our life, our family, and us. That curiosity is what helps set us apart in a good way. So when your questions get halted or stopped or shut down, that is stunting your giftedness. So ask your questions. Find the right and appropriate way to do that, though, right? Be curious. Let it show up. That curiosity could lead down the perfect road to something amazing that everyone's seeking, and you've got the answer by asking the right question and being curious in just the right way. Understand that how you see the world might be different than others, but it doesn't make it wrong. Understand that the nuance of color. I give a homework assignment to my clients a lot to go outside in nature when it's either dawn or dusk, like that twilight time, and go watch for 5 minutes all the trees and tell me how many colors of green they see. Now I'm in Florida, so there's always green. So it's not like it's winter, right? It's not a trick. And I can always tell the people that have that visual and that sensual overexcitability, because they can come back with there's 438 colors of green that I saw in those 5 minutes. Other people will say 6, 10. We all see it differently, and there's no wrong answer. The reason why I give the homework assignment is to tune in even deeper to the way you do things so you can be understood. We're most fulfilled when we are choosing how to engage with the world rather than being in inaction and not engaging with the world. So the more we're able to connect to our meaningful goals, our vision, our passion, who we are, and then bring it out in a way that matters, that is when we're fulfilled. And when we're fulfilled, every human being then brings more harmony and peace and grace to the world. But it's that inner connection, that alignment that matters. It's that choosing to really live in that space and be proud of being gifted. Be proud of being different. Be proud of your diversity. That doesn't mean we shove it in people's faces. It means we use it for the greater good. It means that we take a stand for who we are and we use it for the greater good. It means that our collective journey requires that we radically shift the way we see the world and how we're interacting with the world. That if we as a culture, as a human, are going to keep evolving and transforming, which is what we're meant to do, then we need to embrace who we are. We want all people to have a safe trip through our consciousness. So those people who've judged us in the past or maybe judging us now, we love them from a distance. We don't have to agree with them. But if we're going to be our authentic, gifted self and bring all of us to the world and use our voice with purpose, then it's required that we start shifting ourselves and we begin to embrace and embody who we are. So embody who you are, embody your voice, embody your greatness. Embody all of the quirky, goofy things about you. Embody the fact that it's okay that not everybody understands us. Why would we all want to be the same anyway? Embody the fact that you might feel differently. Let it all out. Let yourself be your authentic, real, amazing self. Now, some people say that being gifted and having gifts are the same. That's not true. All people do have gifts. Not all people are gifted. And that's good. We want everybody to be diverse. People who are gifted have a great spot in the world. People who are not gifted in the same way have different spots and they're great too. We need it all. The answer is yes. But it's not the same as having gifts. It's different because the development of the brain and the nervous system is different. Because the processing in the computer up here is different. Not better, not worse, different. So if you're going to make a profound stake in the ground and you're going to leave this world better than you found it, it's time to embody who you are, to take that stand, say yes to the greater purpose of your life and allow yourself to be in the flow. Allow yourself to be surrounded by other gifted people who get you and allow yourself to be loved by other people who don't get you. It's okay. When people say you're too much or you think too much or you're doing this or you're doing that, stop for a minute and say, is it serving me? Maybe my rapid thinking right now is serving the situation. Maybe it's not. If it's not serving, do something different. If it is serving, keep going. We have a collective journey that all of humanity is on. It requires us to wake up and realize that the world is always expanding. And the shifting that needs to happen away from small-mindedness can be broken free by those of us who are gifted, first of all, owning it, and second of all, living in that space with love and kindness and compassion and precision and harmony. So if you're gifted and you don't know it, it matters, because you might be trying to play small. You might be suffering from some kind of depression or anxiety because you're not being your authentic self, because you're hiding, knowingly or unknowingly. You might be wanting to spread your wings and get out there in the world and stopping yourself. Or better, worse, I guess, better, worse. I don't know if it's better or worse. See, my brain just did a brain whoop. Or worse, allowing yourself to be impacted by other people who are thinking small. So there's a right way to do it, as in right, as in higher dimensionally right, not right or wrong, right? There is a way to say yes to who you are and embody that and love yourself. And then act upon the world, emerge with your giftedness right here on the platter. Here you go. Let me share who I am with you, really. If you're not respected for who you are, love that person from a distance. There's tons of us gifted people out here who love hanging out with you anyway. So let your quirkiness, your geekiness, your freakiness, your creativity, your intelligence, your heart, your empathy, your intuition, let it all show up. Allow yourself to be aligned. And then you'll see the real power and magnificence. And then you will see how come it matters that you step into who you authentically are, knowing that no two of us are the same. So comparison, no comparisons. Everybody is valuable. So use your giftedness for the good, for the higher good. Use your giftedness to help transform yourself and others. Use your giftedness to let your own inner joy show up. I invite you in this very moment to take a couple breaths, go within and honor all of those parts of you. And then, when you've put your shoulders back and you let all of you show up, let your brilliant light be like that lighthouse to the sailors in danger, to be that safe spot for the other gifted people. Come and join us with our Someone Gets Me network, where it's a sanctuary for gifted people. Like this podcast, do whatever you need to do to connect with other gifted people, and reach out to me if you have any comments, questions, or desires that you would like to see fulfilled, because it does matter that you know you're gifted, and it does matter that even if you're not gifted, that you know these traits, so that the gifted people around you, you don't accidentally squash them. You instead feed them goodness. So until the next episode of Someone Gets Me, be well. Thank you for listening. I trust you gained some valuable inspiration and information. Please join me and other visionaries in the Someone Gets Me Facebook group. Or for more information on my services and additional episodes, visit someonegetsme.com. Again, thanks for listening.